Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Before I turn it over to the Premier, just want to go over a few housekeeping rules. Thanks to those who submitted their questions in advance. We'll start with those questions, and then in order to get to as many as possible, we'll be taking one question per outlet and then going around for a second round if we have time. This meeting is also being recorded. A copy of the recording and the transcript will be shared with you following the roundtable. And as well, I'll speak between each question to let you know who can ask their question now and who will be next. And make sure to turn on your mic and camera when you are asked to ask your question. And with that, at the end, we'll also take a quick group photo with everyone with their cameras on. And I won't take any more time with that, and I'll pass it over to the Premier for some opening remarks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sam, for putting this together. And thank you all for joining us again today. I want to take your questions and then tell you, of course, what we've been up to for over the summer. Maybe I'll answer the last question first, because I know that you saw a change in the number of press releases that are being made available in languages for your audience. And so I've asked Sam to take that away to just see. We did do a little bit of a reorganization of our public affairs unit. And so maybe something, not to joke about it, but got lost in translation through that. So I would just ask you to send a note to Sam of the language that you would like your press releases in, just so that we're not missing anything. And he'll follow up on that one. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it, but we want to make sure you get the information that you need. Let me start with the highlights. Since the legislature rose from the spring session, we announced the Alberta Next panel. It's undertaken a series of roundtables across the province to listen to Albertans on a variety of topics, most importantly on how we can ensure a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. To understand a little bit about where, because perhaps the country that many of your readers hail from is not as decentralized as the Canadian Federation. We're one of the most decentralized federations in the world. And our Constitution gives us exclusive jurisdiction to deliver programs in many, many areas. But what has happened is, when we were a small province with less money and less people, we let the federal government do those things on our behalf. And now we're consulting on whether or not we should be more like Quebec, because Quebec has taken over all of its areas of constitutional jurisdiction. And it's been discussed for probably 30 years whether Alberta should do the same. And so that's what we're talking about, why we're discussing whether we should collect our own taxes and have our own police and have our own pension and have our own immigration system. Those are the things that are already done in many other provinces instead of ours. So that's what the purpose of it is. We also announced a first quarter update, which showed, sadly, that our deficit has increased due to lower oil prices and pressures due to economic uncertainty, as well as population growth. When the population grows, it puts more demand on our services. But when we have tariff threats and investment uncertainty, it reduces the amount of jobs and profits, which reduces our revenues. And in particular on oil and gas prices, those have been low, and that also creates a problem for our budget. We're looking at a $6.5 billion deficit this year if things continue. We also announced that we'll be removing books depicting explicit sexual images from the school libraries for young people. We know that that was a policy that was misunderstood when it was first released. The Edmonton Public School Board determined that anything that might have any reference to sexually explicit content in any book, regardless of whether it was a classics, had to be removed from all schools. That was not our intent. If you, I caution you to, when you go and look at the types of materials that we're talking about, we were talking about graphic novels that show explicit images that are pornographic. And I think we can all agree that children, if I can't describe them to you here without everybody blushing, then a 7-year-old shouldn't be looking at it either. So that's what we've made super clear to our school boards is get the pornographic images out of schools and leave the classics alone. During the Calgary Stampede, I announced an agreement with Ontario and Saskatchewan to work together on pipeline projects, as well as with the Yukon to work together on trade agreements. You'll see most of the provinces are doing these bilateral agreements. I'm looking forward to doing more. In August, I traveled to Mexico to grow our ties and trading partnerships with companies there. And you've probably seen WestJet is continuing to expand its offerings. And so they have a direct flight to Mexico now, which I believe is a few times a week. They have expanded their relationship with Copa Airlines, which allows them to have spread all the way through the Caribbean and down into Central America and South America. So I'm quite interested to see how members of your communities might take advantage of some of these new direct routes. I think that we now have about 100 direct flights going out of the Calgary airport, and I think 55 going out of the Edmonton airport. And I can tell you that we keep on advocating for that. We know that if you have direct flights, it just makes it so much easier for people to see family, as well as have tourism, as well as do business. So if anyone has any suggestions about how I should expand my lobbying for WestJet and Air Canada for direct flights out of Edmonton or Calgary, happy to hear what your suggestions might be, because we've had some success in that regard. We've got a few more that we're working on. Just this week, I was in Colorado speaking to oil and gas executives on the importance of our relationship there, to Denver, another place where we have a direct flight. And Denver, of course, is a major hub in the United States. And then yesterday, Minister Joseph Scow and I announced a new program that will incentivize Alberta companies to hire youth, to address youth unemployment in Alberta, and to help young Albertans find their first jobs. As you probably saw, the expansion of the temporary foreign worker program to include low-income jobs has created some problems of youth unemployment. And we're watching it. We're about 17% youth unemployment. And we hear at all of our Alberta Next meetings, people frustrated that their young child or their young grandchild is not able to get a job even at a greenhouse or a McDonald's or an A&W or a Tim Hortons. And so we're incentivizing by offering a $10 per hour subsidy for 400 hours, so that employers will give youths 15 to 24 their first job. We're worried if they don't get their first job, they won't get their second job, and then we're going to end up with a societal problem. So that's one of the reasons why we're trying to shift the emphasis away from temporary foreign workers for those type of jobs to kids, so that they can get them. I also met with Prime Minister Mark Carney this week, and I'm encouraged that Alberta is finally being heard by the federal government. The 5 projects that were approved by the Major Projects Office based in Calgary shows that after 10 years of the federal government stifling and strangling resource investment, they are now finally realizing it's time to unleash our potential and our resources. One of them was an expansion of LNG. LNG Canada wanted to do a doubling of their production, and so that is on the major projects list. There are mining operations that are on the project list, I believe copper and gold mines, as well as a major thoroughfare between Quebec City and Toronto for a high-speed train, which is very interesting, because I think we should have a high-speed train between Calgary and Edmonton too. So that may open up an avenue for us to advocate for that also. But our big focus is, I think, what I'm calling the grand bargain, what the Prime Minister is calling Pathways Plus. I believe that if we can get a CO2 pipeline, a bitumen pipeline, and deal with the 9 bad laws that have been impacting our investment climate, we'll be in really good shape. And so that's what we're working towards for the next round of major projects being announced. It's certainly approving LNG Canada will ensure we can get more natural gas to market. We've already seen that project, LNG Canada, is co-owned by Shell, and then a Malaysian company, a Korean company, a Japanese company, and a Chinese company. And they have received our product not only for gas, but also through the Trans Mountain pipeline, and they like it and they want more of it. So that's part of the reason why we're working on expanding those trade ties, and why myself and my ministers have been spending a lot of time on doing trade missions. The next big trade mission that I will do will be into the Middle East. We'll be opening up an office in Abu Dhabi. And I am advocating to try to get a direct flight to Abu Dhabi as well, just so you know. I think that would be a good entry into the Middle Eastern market. But then we're also going to be opening up a new trade office in Mumbai. We had a presence in India, but because of some of the challenges with the Canadian-India relationship over the last few years, they're slowly reopening, and they'll be opening in Mumbai, and we'll be co-located there. And then next year, I'm going to be going to Europe. We have an office already out of London, which has been doing a lot of duty trying to manage not only the relationship throughout Europe, but also through the Middle East and Africa. And so I want to be able to just see if that office is overworked, and if we need to be looking at additional expansions. But that will allow us to go through and look at various healthcare models in Europe, where they have universal systems that work a whole lot better than ours. So that is going to be coming up as well. And so anyway, it's been a busy summer. There's lots more to come. And I know you got a ton of questions, so let me turn it over to Sam, and he can moderate that.
Awesome. Thank you, Premier. And for those who didn't submit a question in advance, feel free to raise your hand to enter the queue. We're going to start off with a question from Sunny Fowl, and then we'll go to Gia Song after that. So, Sunny, feel free to go ahead.
Thank you, thank you, Sam. Thank you, Premier, for taking the call. And you all always it's delighted to hear from you and all the updates. Thank you. But Daniel, I'm going to sound like a broken record. My questions are in part one and part two. Part one is updates on Condominium Act, like we have spoken about, like we are talking about last couple of years, but no update has been provided by the Service Alberta Minister. Rika is also, looking to basically address all the issues. We are in a limbo if you can provide. And part two is we always talk about Alberta Health Services, like we have shortage of hospitals, nurses, medical staff, and everything. But as per my information, when I spoke to the people, in last 4 years, they are saying no permanent position or temporary positions have been opened for the nurses in any of hospital in Edmonton or nearby. So I just needed an update. If you can give, I will highly appreciate, or we will highly appreciate.
Sure. Let me just go to the Condo Act. So you know that the act was approved and received royal assent in December of 2024. And so it established the ability to create a condominium dispute resolution tribunal. The regulations supporting that are currently in development. And then it will provide an alternative method for condo owners and boards to resolve common disputes outside the court system. So the way our process works is that you kind of set the direction of government and legislature, and then the details of how it's going to work get set by cabinet. We've already approved those. And so we just have a process that we have to go through internally to make sure that all of those are written up appropriately and will be released. But I'll have to find out from Sam if he can just double check when the launch date of the tribunal will be, because we're very close. We're almost done on that. When it comes to the healthcare system, there's a few things that I would say is that I know that there is there's sort of a talking point out there about about what our staffing levels are, and they're not necessarily true. I'll see if I can give you some of these numbers, because we have had let me tell you, we have over 6,000 more nurses practicing in Alberta today than we did when we got elected. We have over 2,400 more doctors practicing in Alberta today than we did when we got elected. And we have over 500 more EMS staff and paramedics practicing in Alberta today than we did when we got elected. Plus, we also have a brand new avenue for nurse practitioners to be able to set up their own private practices and bill directly, just like a doctor's office. That was never allowed before. We were the first ones to do it. And last I checked, we were at 60, with more who are interested in doing that. Our budget now is for 2024 was $26.2 billion. So we have continued to increase. We've increased our number of surgeries. We thought we would have 310,000 done last year. We ended up with 318,000, which is an all-time high. So we've restored and also expanded the number of surgeries that we're providing. So I think perhaps what we're trying to sort out is, for some reason in the Alberta market, nurses have a preference to be part-time and casual. And you can see it because we look at the percentages. When I first came in, the number of nurses that worked full-time was 39%. In the most recent numbers that I've seen, it's down to 30%. And so it's not a matter of the number of people. It's a matter of, we have to create the conditions where the nurses that we do have feel encouraged to work full time. Because the other part of the problem that we had is that the more senior you are as a nurse, you get first dibs on full time. So one of the deals that we negotiated with the nurses is that we have to be able to hire 1,000 new graduates right fresh out of school full time, and they agreed to that. So that was just our most recent negotiated settlement. So we had to solve some of those issues, but I think that you're going to see a lot more postings that will come out that are full-time and permanent as a result of us getting through this round of bargaining and coming to an agreement with our nurses. So keep asking me though, because if we don't now see progress after finding out what the problems were and addressing them through negotiations, I'll want to know that so that you can ask me again next year.
Thank you, ma'am. Really appreciate.
Thanks, Sunny.